So you were really disappointed with Diablo 4, and you kind of understood Last Epoch, but you really couldn't get a grasp on it. And then you figured out, what the heck, let's try Path of Exile. Everybody's talking about it. So what do? You download that bad boy. You go ahead and you log into your actual game. You then pick the league you want to do. You start picking your character. You name that bad boy and jump yourself right into the beach. Oh, don't do that. Ooh, this is gonna be rough. Anyways, you start playing and you hit level 2, and all of a sudden you open up the skill tree and you pass out. Well, you know what? Today, don't worry about all of that. I'm going to help break down a lot of Path of Exile's mechanics and complexity into a very simple way for you to understand. And then that way you can really just enjoy one of the best ARPGs ever made. In fact, this is going to be an entire series on how to play Path of Exile for dummies. Even though I'm a dummy too, don't worry, we're dummies together. So you know what? Go ahead, press P on that keyboard, open up that skill tree. I'm going to walk you through it and you're going to figure out why this is one of the best games pretty much ever made. So you leveled up, you open up the skill tree, and this is what you're greeted with. Yeah, it's pretty insane, but don't worry, we're going to break it down into really easy to understand chunks and you'll get through it. So whenever you pick your class, you're given one of these major nodes. This is just basically where your class starts. Every class begins in a different section of the tree. These sort of like trifold wheels, that's where certain classes actually begin. So you can see that as you go around the tree, you can see specific places on where actual classes go. There's one class that begins directly in the middle. That's the Scion. If you get to the end of the campaign, you'll unlock that class later. We'll talk about that in another video. But we picked the Marauder this time and we're like, all right, let's go ahead and do what we got to do. Now, when you begin your actual tree inside Path of Exile, you want to figure out exactly where you want to go. You want to figure out the path you want to take since you are an exile of Rayclast. Path of Exile, yeah.
Man, boo. Tomato, tomato, tomato. I'm throwing tomatoes.
It was funny in my head, okay? So you've got really simple passive skill points. So like things like melee damage and life, strength, basic things you're going to be needing throughout your character's progression while you level up that character. There are a couple of things you should definitely take a look at though. So like this one, it's called Butchery. These are called notable passives. These are skills and actual passive abilities that enhance your character in very specific ways. So each one of these like sort of medium-sized skill points are what you're going to look for when you're trying to say, hey, what can I shoot for in this tree? So if you zoom out a little bit, you can kind of actually see where those skill points are. You've got one here, another couple of there, one here, and a few down here. So you can say, okay, instead of looking at all these small little ones, think of like, what are some of the bigger ones that I can get to that will make my character better or more the style that I want to play this character. And by reading the description of those notable passive skills, you can then figure out whether or not you want to take that skill or move on to something else that's more in line of what you want to do with your character. Now look, there are going to be a lot of other things as well, but we're going to keep it pretty simple, okay? Now you're going to see this big one over here. It's going to be called the Avatar of Fire. Now, because I picked the Marauder, I'm close to it. Depending upon your class, you'll be close to other skill points and things as well. Now, this big one is called a Keystone. These completely change how you play your character, and depending upon the skills you want to use and the kind of character you want to make will determine whether or not you'd select these keystones directly while you're playing the game. So let's break this down really easily as a recap once again. You've got your small passive skill points that grant you small bonuses while you're playing the actual game and leveling up through progression. You then have notable passives that can increase the kind of character you're making. You then have keystones, which completely change how your character progresses and or plays that specific class. Simple so far? Cool. Now there are a couple of things in skill trees inside of Path of Exile that are actually really awesome. You can go into any side of this skill tree that you want, regardless of what class you actually are. So if you're a Marauder, you can then move down into this other skill tree of the Duelist and even go directly into what the Ranger class has on this side. Or you can even go up here into the Templar section or even the Witch area. Some builds and some classes actually have the ability to go almost across the entire skill tree because of specific keystones and notable passives passives that are applicable to their actual play style. It's really cool because you get to sort of like experiment, play around, and really just enjoy what this game has to offer. Now, a couple of things are going to happen off the bat. Alex, what if I make a mistake? Don't worry. This is Path of Exile. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot of them. What happens is you have these specific pieces of currency called orbs of regret. They kind of look like this. And you can find those throughout while playing the game. And as you get further and further into the campaign, into the end game, you'll be able to find them more frequently, more often, or even buy them from specific vendors as well. By using these orbs of regret, you can then use those skill points and then reset your skill tree in whatever way you'd like. Now, one orb is basically just one skill point. So if you make a mistake or you mess something up, don't even sweat it or look at it, right? Just enjoy the campaign, play through the game, and you'll be just fine. It's not that hard to beat, I promise. So we've pretty much figured out that, hey, we've got passive skill points that give us small bonuses. We have notable skills that really enhance the kind of character we want to play. And then we have keystone abilities inside that skill tree, which really give us a different way of playing that character or can fundamentally change how that character actually plays. So now you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute. I kind of like a skill that gives me fire. I want to do more fire damage. Let's go ahead and figure that out. Are you going to go through each and every skill point to find fire? No, that's going to be a waste of your time. Up here on the top where it says skills, right next to it is a search box. Once you click inside, you can just type fire. And when you do that and you go back to your skill tree, you can see every single skill, whether it's a small passive, a keystone, or a notable passive, highlight itself if it has anything to do with the word fire. Now, this can be a good thing or a bad thing because it can be either fire resistance or fire damage or anything along that has just the word fire in it. So you're searching for specific keywords. Let's say you want to do a build that is a bleed build. Now, everything that has bleed is highlighted. As you can see, that small blue glow shows up on those skills. You can see it right here, and it's an easy catch-all way of figuring out where you want to put your skills and your points when you're playing the game. So even though this may look daunting, even though this may have some really weird ways of trying to figure out what do you do next, you can sort of guide yourself in the direction of where you need to go, depending upon what kind of class you want to play and what kind of skills you want to use. Now, the great thing though is you don't really have to do any of that in the beginning. You can just focus on a lot of the small things. As you can see, we've got some small passive skills here in my Marauder class. We're going to do melee damage in life. We're going to apply that point. It's no big deal. Now, oh, look at this. This one's next to it, Born to Fight. 4% increase attack speed, plus 20 strength, 26% increased damage. That seems kind of cool. Let's go ahead and get there. We've got two different ways. We can get more melee damage on the way there, or we can get more strength on the way there. You can basically choose however you want to do it. In the beginning though, while you're playing the game, you don't really have to worry about a lot of requirements for gear in terms of stats. Some people say yes, some people say no. You're really going to be just focusing on just progressing and leveling throughout the game, and most of the stuff that you have on file normally, depending on your character and class, will be just fine in terms of skills and sort of like stats. So you'll be okay for now if you just want to go ahead and pick the damage one or even just the strength one. It'll be just fine, whichever way you really want to go. So as you're progressing throughout the game and leveling up, you can see more notable passives that you may want to be interested in. So even if you don't want to go ahead and zoom all the way out and say, this is too much, you can keep things rather close and sort of like guide yourself in a direction where you can say, okay, this looks kind of cool. This seems what really helped my character. Let's go ahead and read what it has to say in the description, and we'll determine whether or not we want to go through there. And as you continually move and path your way through your skill tree, Exile, I had to do it again, I'm sorry. You'll then see other notable passives or keystone that may intrigue you more than the other ones that were nearby. So even if you find something that you didn't actually like or didn't fit what kind of character you want to make, there may be something nearby that you can definitely choose, or you can just search for the thing you want to look for. So if you want to look for life, not lice, you can see all the actual nodes that give you life. If you want to look for resistances, you can find that too. So anything that has a resist, if I can spell correctly, we'll just do resist. That'd be nice. You'll see all the actual nodes that give you defensive layers of resistance. All of these things that you want to look for specifically at that moment in time, you can find directly on the skill tree by simply using the search function. Now, a cool thing that this tree also provides for you is that not only can you go ahead and search for the kind of skills you want, find notable passives to make yourself more powerful as you play the game, and even then find keystones, you can also find basic jewel sockets and also large jewel sockets. When you get closer to the end game, you'll see more of these show up. Now, why would you want to put a point into a jewel socket, whether large or basic? Well, there are specific jewels that you can place into these sockets that will either give you bonuses to whatever stats the jewel has applied onto it, or give you an entirely new tree that you could work into and then have more skills and more abilities from those jewels. So on top of having those skills and abilities and enhancing them through basic jewels, you can have large jewel clusters that can give you more abilities to then path into. So you don't have to be stuck with whatever is on the tree. You can basically customize it yourself. Now that's more into like the end game category, but if you're looking at these things specifically, I wouldn't focus on them until later on in the campaign or even further on when you are into end game category, and we'll go over those in another time as well. But yeah, that's basically the skill tree. Once you break it down into those three simple categories of passive skill points, notable passives, and keystones, you can then think about the kind of character you want to make and how you want to play the game. And the fact that you have orbs of regret to go ahead and refund any skill points that you'd accidentally put somewhere, it's easy to go through and say, hey, let's experiment, let's play the game, let's go through the campaign. So you don't have to feel like you need some sort of crazy math degree or figure out how to work through this campaign or think about, oh, I need a guide, I don't know where to go, this is so complex. If you break it down into smaller chunks and smaller segments, you'll be just fine and you'll have the ability to play one of the best ARPGs ever made. Definitely experiment and enjoy while you play the campaign. After you beat it, you'll get to end game and you'll be able to go ahead and really fine tune exactly how you want your character to play. No build is ever bricked, no class is ever broken. Trust me, you can make anything in this game, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but sometimes even the most clockwork style of classes can really surprise you. So don't always follow what everybody else says. Pretty much everything in this game is viable, just depends how much time you have and how viable you want to make it. So that's it. I hope this video helped you understand the Path of Exile skill tree and even gave you a little bit more confidence to approach it and basically just enjoy the game for what it is, one of the best ARPGs ever made. Path of Exile is not complicated, it's just complex. And when you break things down into smaller chunks, hopefully this video will help you out in understanding what this game can actually do and how much fun and time you can really dump into this game and just really enjoy. And just to let you know, this isn't going to be the only video where I talk about Path of Exile guides. This is going to be an entire playlist where I cover a lot of the beginner basics that people really don't understand about ARPGs or Path of Exile in general. You can take these sort of thoughts and mechanics into other ARPGs and also be successful as well. So keep an eye on this playlist if you want to learn more about Path of Exile. We are also covering ARPG news as well and my personal opinions about the genre on this channel too. And I really appreciate everything. So if you like this content, subscribe, and especially if you want to see more. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great one, and I'll see you next time.